Action. All right. So, how did you decide this is what you wanted to do for a living?
Well, in high school, I had an opportunity to participate in a summer program at Rhodes College. It was Southwestern, but it's now Rhodes College at home in Memphis. And one of the classes that I took was psychology. So I found that topic interesting, and then I decided that's what I wanted to major in college. So I've fallen into, I guess, academic advising in
Mm-hmm.
higher education by accident in a way, because the career goal was to be a psychologist in private practice. Um, so after college, I initially started graduate school, but that wasn't working with my full time schedule. And so then I worked, and then after a period of time, I went back to graduate school, went to a different graduate school, um, because I was thinking that it would be difficult to work and go to school.
Yeah.
And so I quit my job so that I could just focus on
School.
But the classes ended up being in the evening because that program was designed for working people.
Dang.
So, which was okay, which is okay. And then after I got my master's degree, um, I worked for an agency that was contracted by the Department of Tennessee um, Children's Services. I worked as a case manager doing custody cases primarily. Um, and then still thinking about that path towards getting into private practice, I took a job at a mental health center where I was the adult services mental health counselor, and worked there a little over 2 years trying to get that experience as well. When I was in the process of looking to do something different, the opportunity in higher education at Fisk University sort of fell in my lap, and I worked in the TRIO Student Support Services program there.
And you were the director of that, right?
Okay. From 2010 up until I left recently. But I started out as in the counselor position.
Okay.
Got promoted to assistant director in.
But you became director. So you did you got your master's degree from TSU, correct?
Yes.
Tennessee State.
Okay. In psychology.
All right, and do you think that the social work / counseling field is occupation that's needed in our day and time?
Most definitely, because there are just so many things that are going on in the world. There's so many family issues that impact people's lives, and so counseling is definitely very much needed. Whether you're doing it with a psychology degree or with a social work degree.
Okay. All right. Were there any? Did you have like any doubts? Like coming into this field, like and even like working in the field, did you have like any doubts? Like, dang, I don't think I should be doing it. This might not be for me. Or like, what were some of your challenges like that you had to overcome?
Well, I don't guess I ever thought that this is not for me, but of course, when you're going into a new experience, you always have doubts about whether I'm going to be able to do this job the correct way. And so,
so you had like a nervous feeling.
Nervous feelings. And that's the same way from going from the case manager to the adult counselor, and then even transitioning into higher education. Because you don't know, each situation has been different, and I've had to learn what it took to be the case manager and successfully do a court report and make recommendations to the court. Then dealing with people who really have serious mental health issues, depression, schizophrenia. So that's what I dealt with primarily as the mental health counselor. And then going into a completely different environment where the main focus is just making sure that the program's needs are being addressed with the students in that capacity in higher ed. So even though I wasn't doing counseling like I had been doing at the mental health center, students have issues as well. So I did have an opportunity, throughout that time to do personal counseling with the students. Um, whether it was just to complain about their roommate
Yeah.
or deal with stress or even talk about more personal issues regarding family, um, and other, more in-depth issues.
So would you consider transitioning as one of the biggest challenges social workers and like counselors face? Do you think that's one of the biggest issues, or well, like what's your opinion? Your opinion, what do you think is like the biggest challenge?
I think when you look at counseling, because you are there and you're trying to help people deal with personal issues,
Yeah.
you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, that you're not letting whatever the client's issues are affect you personally.
So protecting your mental health.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. And do you feel that being a black woman in this field makes it harder for people to take you seriously, especially coming from this? You had a HBCU, now you got a PWI. Do you feel as though did you feel any type of did you have a major culture shock?
No,
No, no
no,
culture
I
shock.
didn't, because I've always been in, both situations,
Mhm.
even from high school, even though my undergrad was at a HBCU.
Yeah.
Uh, the graduate school is considered a HBCU, but there is a huge um,
Diversity.
diversity at Tennessee State, and especially in the graduate programs. Um, and even though at this it is a HBCU, the cultural diversity comes in when you have a lot of professors with an international background,
Yeah.
and then you have a good number of students from other countries as well. And so coming here, I think the shock is more so in I'm in a larger university that has so many, so much to offer to students as far as majors, and there are just a lot more opportunities here
Yeah.
versus where the HBCU that
Yeah.
I worked at.
So what do you think is like? Do you think that if people like don't take you as serious because do you think people don't take you serious because you're black, or how do you
I
feel
haven't
about
had
that? Or you haven't
I
experienced
haven't
anything like
experienced
that?
that. Hmm.
Okay.
And I guess I could say I've been fortunate in that area.
Oh yeah, because the sea is the south. All right. So what are the pros of working in this field, in your opinion, of course?
As a counselor,
Yeah.
um, hmm, pros. Well, hmm, you get to work with uh, a diverse population. Uh, you're dealing with diverse issues. So, whereas there may be some similarities, and I'm thinking about more so when you talk about counseling and
Mhm.
therapy with clients, you know, um, there are different diagnoses of depression. So you may have somebody that's more severe than the other. So when you look at the DSM manual, you have these different categories, and so you're dealing with different things.
Yeah.
Um,
You
sometimes
like
you
the
may.
variety,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, what are the cons of working in this field?
Depending on the setting that you're in,
Okay.
you can have extremely long hours, or you may have more clients than perhaps you would like. For example, at the mental health center, I was the primary adult services counselor. So um, I had a caseload of over 60 primary clients, but I also had a secondary caseload. Um, and because it was a mental health center, there were case managers there as well. So the adult case managers had their clients, But some of those people wanted individual counseling. So
Yeah.
that's where my secondary caseload came in, and that number was much larger. Not everybody came to counseling appointments, but if they had said previously they wanted it and they decided, it's been 3 years since I've seen a counselor, let me do that. So, and keeping up with the paperwork, their process was to do intake for new patients or new clients 3 days a week, starting at 8:30. 60, 70 people could come in for intake. They did not do a cutoff. So me and two children and youth counselors would do intake, and we would do it until the last person was seen. So, and then I would typically go straight into, I would be through with that, typically by 1, and then go straight into seeing my scheduled 1 o'clock appointment. And then the clinical director had told me we were supposed to, she told me rather that there were supposed to be adult groups. So that meant I had to develop a curriculum and have group for the adults. It wasn't very successful. I tried my best with advertising, the case manager advertised, but typically I would have on average 2 people to show up for group, and that was every other week. But then also, because I had previous experience when I did my practicum in graduate school with working with adolescents, she had me to go to the residential facility and do A&D counseling with the adolescents there. I enjoyed that a lot because it got me out the building and what have you. So, intake, and then on top of that, you had trainings that you had to do, and you had staffing, weekly staffing. So for the children and youth had their own staffings, and then the adult part had their staffings. It was just a lot.
Yeah. So you basically sum that into saying the cons would be keeping up the workload. All right, I feel that. What advice would you give your younger self?
My younger self. At this point, when I look back on it, I wish I had, even after moving to Nashville, I wish I had gone forward and continued what I needed to do to get my license. That's one of my big regrets, is that I don't have that LPC or licensed professional counselor.
Really?
I don't. So that's my biggest regret. And I would have told myself, continue on with that. It's still a goal.
Yeah.
I haven't given up on it, but I definitely would have made sure that I had done it then.
Right. What advice would you give an upcoming social worker and or like counselor?
Make sure while you're getting that master's degree that you're doing what you need to do to get your license.
My mama said the same thing. She said you better not come in. As a counselor, you are consistently making schedules and sending emails, mass emails. So, what do you think is like your major writing genre?
It would be Microsoft Word, not somewhere here in this current position, but case manager, Microsoft Word for court reports. Did not use Excel at all. But, at some point, the Department of Children's Services had a platform developed called 10 Kids, which is where all notes regarding your contacts with families and what have you went into that system. They don't use that now, that's my understanding. So, as the mental health worker, really did not type anything per se. They had forms, so it was a lot of handwriting, but notes were entered into whatever platform that they used to keep up with notes for that. Did not use Excel with that at all. Coming into higher education, for generating letters to students, Microsoft Word. Um, I used to do a presentation to incoming freshmen, so PowerPoint, I had to learn that because I had never done PowerPoint before.
Really?
So, in graduate school, yes, that was not, I date myself, but that was not something that we used. And I can't even remember if that was available. It might have been, but nobody did PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Also in higher ed, let's see, Microsoft Word. I used Excel because I created the database and I did it in Excel. The young lady that I had replaced in that position, she used Microsoft Access, but I didn't care for that.
Yeah.
So for higher ed, it was, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. But we also did a lot of things that were already on forms created, so a lot of handwriting with it, a lot of paperwork on that. Here, they're basically paperless, so everything goes into the platform of Navigate here. So I've learned something different. I'd say everywhere that I've worked is, related to computer skills. Higher ed, that's when Facebook came about while I was there. So learning social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, so, and I don't have an opportunity to use those here. Because with the TRIO program, it was directed at that particular population of students.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen anybody say anything about any social media in this context.
Not yet. Right.
I know that the university uses it in other areas, but I don't think the advisors do anything related to social media.
Okay. So you said MCSU already have their own format. So when you're making the schedule, it already comes like with the columns and everything. You just got to put in the classes and the students.
Well, you mean as far as students in their class schedules?
Yes.
Actually, I don't do anything with that. However, that's built into Pipeline. That's on the students to actually put their schedule in. And because I'm new to Pipeline and I didn't have to help students enter a schedule at FISC.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to get somebody here to show me how to do that.
So when you were helping me with my schedule the other day, was it already columnized like that, or you just fill in the blanks like
I was just filling in that sheet.
Okay.
Looking at what was in degree works as far as what you were currently taking.
Yeah.
And looking at the plan of study for social work to see what you needed to take as far as a social work class and your general education courses.
Okay. Okay.